Okay, cool. So why don't we just start by, so I'm Kathy. No, how do you start these things? Okay, wait. Start again. So hello, Veronica. Will you please tell us why you decided to join the Amplify program?
Yeah, so I decided to join the program for a number of reasons. But my main reason was that I was in a situation where I was moving from an institution. So I'd been at my previous institution in a tenure track role for 4 years. And I was just starting up at my current position, which is now at Florida State University. And I really wanted to make sure that I was maintaining my momentum. Like I felt like at my previous institution, it took me a while to get my feet under me. And I was just starting to get going. And I knew I was making this change. And my fear was that I would backslide. And I really wanted to start my new position strong, maintain the momentum in my scholarship, right? And really just establish myself as the scholar that I wanted to be at my new institution. It was an opportunity for me to start fresh, and I wanted to start strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you say something maybe specific about the program that helped you do that?
Yeah. Well, so I really appreciate the framework that your conceptual framework that you developed.
Yes.
And just, it makes so much sense for, I felt like my life as a female academic in particular, right? That it's not, you can't just focus on one aspect of it and be successful. But, you know, I think all three of the components, right? The clarify, demystify, multiply are all really critical. But I think for me, I was coming in with some really good strategies I felt already. So I, at my previous institution, you know, I had, through trial and error, figured out a good system that worked for me in terms of being accountable for my writing. I had accountability groups that we developed, but I was losing all of that when I moved to my institution. So that was a kind of, and I knew I was anticipating that I would need to reevaluate and restructure myself given my new position and, you know, my new university. So I felt like even though the demystify part focuses a lot on creating systems that work for you, even though I felt like I had a system that worked for me, it was really refreshing to have your take and different strategies that might work well. And so because of a lot of your talks with Trello, I had not actually, we did use Trello previously in our accountability group, but I hadn't really used it to the full capacity that I feel like I'm always on Trello, whereas I just kind of used it every now and then. It wasn't really part of like my daily habit that it is now. But I think something that's unique to Amplify that, you know, I didn't get as much from some of the other programs that are out there is that I felt like you did a really good job about kind of backing up and talking more about what is your mission and how do you clarify who you want to be. And then how does that drive the choices that you make? So I really appreciated, you know, taking the time to actually write a mission statement and create, you know, the milestone map that, you know, has milestones that is different than your traditional tenure milestones, right? Like what are the milestones that are really important for me, right? That would serve my general mission. So I really appreciated having time to reflect on that part. And then from that, then it really made the decisions I was making in terms of, you know, what papers I was going to work on, right? Like I really love that idea of, you know, creating a theme for your semester, right? Just to really drive home that, we have 1,000 things that we do, but we don't have to do all those 1,000 things all at once, right? And we can't do all those 1,000 things. So how do we be strategic and intentional about the time that we do have so that, you know, we are efficient and effective with the little time that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it so well. That's yay. And yes, we do kind of create Trello, people who are hooked on Trello, right? It's not all that we do, but sometimes the byproduct is that people are like, but that's like a result of really taking control of project management, right? Like of really saying like, okay, well, I'm not just haphazardly doing things off of a list. I have a process, right? And I can follow that process and repeat it over and over again.
And I think what's really great about that is that it feels like then you have control over it, whereas sometimes it just seems so big, right?
And don't you feel
tenure and promotion just seems so huge and it seems like we don't have control, but really we can control a lot of it, right? But
Yeah.
I think your system allows us to kind of create little achievable benchmarks that says, okay, yes, I can control it. And the way I'm going to control it is by doing X, Y, and Z this month.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes that the word control gets a negative, gets kind of like, sounds negative, right? Like we don't want to be controlling, but actually I do want women to be controlling of their careers, like, and not be blown in the wind, and really, like you said, have a mission, have a milestone map, and be able to have the tools to like really do that, do the things that you want to do, and not just what you can do, or like if you, by piecing things together,
And I think overall, like it feels like, I think a lot of times this academia in general is very, a lot of people, and at least from my experience, like I felt like my first couple of years that I was almost like, my motivation was to get away from the guilt, right? Or to get away from, like, to get some relief from the pressure, right? Yes. Whereas I feel like now it's been like it's been a shift in my mindset, in that I'm actually really enjoying what I'm doing. And yeah, I don't enjoy everything I do, right? But it's like, by creating the structure and creating like the vision and the motivation has kind of brought back and reminded me why I'm here and why I do what I do, that I'm here for a reason. And there is a reason why I decided to do this, right? That sometimes got lost.
Yes.
Before.
Yeah. And I think that being motivated by guilt it can't last that long. Like it feels horrible while it's happening. And then also like it's a completely unsustainable way to be motivated, right? Like we have to be motivated by that deeper inner like mission or thing you want to do or reason you got into it, because being motivated by guilt just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were one of the people who came to a writing retreat. So would you tell us a little bit about your experience on the writing retreat, what you liked about it, and what, how you feel like it helped your writing practice?
Yeah, so I have done other writing retreats before, but I think what was different about your writing retreat is that, I was with people who I had already established and started to develop a personal connection with. So, we had a number of Zoom calls, which I think at least once a month or once every 2 weeks. But I felt like we were already developing a community. And then by the time we went on the retreat, it was just really nice to actually put like a physical person instead of just, a video image.
Yes.
So it felt really safe and supportive and comfortable. Whereas in other writing retreats that I've gone to, people are very supportive, but you don't really know them beforehand. You get to know them then, but then you don't really, I didn't keep in touch with anyone in my previous writing retreats, whereas I feel like I've continued to have that community and that support through our Zoom meetings and our talks. So I think that was something that was unique to the Amplify retreat. But I also really liked that it was semi-structured, right? So there was, during breakfast, we checked in, and then, we had time to work in whatever way works best for us. Some of us, went outside, some of us stayed in the living room, some went to our individual rooms. And so there was still flexibility where you could separate yourself. But I remember also doing like Pomodoros with Felicia, and we're like, okay, let's do it for 30 minutes, then we'll check in, right? So it was nice to be able to say, I'm feeling like I need a little bit of support, and there were people who could provide the support. But if you didn't want to have to socially engage with someone, you had that opportunity to not, right? And there was still, so I felt like it was very supportive and productive, but that a good balance of, by the time dinner came, right, we had delicious food and we could just enjoy and celebrate that we were so productive during the day. Like it didn't feel like a marathon. Like it actually felt like a good balance.
Oh,
and the food was delicious. And of course, Puerto Rico is gorgeous. So that was all wonderful to not have to think about, the food that was coming and where we were going.
Right? Right. I mean, I think that's one of the main parts of a writing of a great retreat, right? Is like those things are out of your mental space completely. The food, the what you're going to do next and whatever. And it's just leaves room for you to get the work done. Right.
Right. Yeah. So I felt like I was very productive, not only in terms of my writing and scholarship, but also in terms of like reinvigorating like my soul without sounding too cheesy, right? Like I actually felt really well rested when I got home. And that's not typically the case. I don't typically love to travel that much, conferences, even though I enjoy conferences while I'm there.
Yep.
It's very exhausting for me. And it usually takes me a day to recuperate, but I didn't feel that way after the writing week. If anything, I was more motivated. Like I felt like, oh yes, this is kind of jump started and my momentum to continue. Right. And you always talk about it allows you to bring writing to the center again. And I felt like that's what it did for me. It was the timing was perfect in that it was the summer and I was just starting off, like my academic year was starting like a week after. I just felt like I was in a great place to continue writing, and which can oftentimes get lost, especially at the beginning of the semester when you're focusing on prepping for your classes and advising.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like really, and also like just as you mentioned before, right? And then the program gave you a way to continue to be in touch with the people that were there. You met them beforehand, you kept up, with them afterwards. And there were ways to like help you like sustain that momentum. So that's really wonderful. Yay. Okay. So I'm looking at my list of questions. I feel like we've actually hit 1 through 6. So let's talk about any objections or thoughts that were going through your mind before you joined the program. So like the sentence to finish is like, I almost didn't join because like, what were some things that you were like, I'm not sure?
Yeah, well, it is an investment, right? It does cost money, but but I think what you charge for your entire program and the writing retreat is very comparable to other programs out there, if not a better deal, I feel like, for what you get. But money was something that I did have to consider because it is an investment. And I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket because I was able to use your advice and get my department to pay for some. I had some grant work that paid for other parts of it. But I did have to decide whether or not that was how I wanted to use those funds.
Absolutely.
So I do think the finances were one thing that, I did have to seriously consider. But I also questioned whether or not I actually needed the program. Because I did feel like I was in a place where like I have been productive in my writing and my research. And so I wondered if your program would offer me anything different or new, right? Because I have been involved in lots of other professional development trainings, either offered through my institution or through other organizations. And so I felt like I've had a lot of good advice and I've been able to implement a lot of those things. So I wondered if, this would be a good use of my money, given that I felt like I was starting off in a pretty good place.
Right. And what do you think, like, now that you're almost like, now I guess May is when you finish the program. So it's, you're getting to the end.
Yes, I absolutely think it was worth the investment. So if anything, a lot of what you would say would just confirm things that I've heard from other places. But if anything, you would offer a different perspective, given that you are a woman and you're a mom. And I appreciate that in your videos and in our meetings, your kids will sometimes come in, right? And I'm also a mom, right? And and I appreciate how just honest you are about that, right? Whereas other programs, they maybe don't acknowledge the unique challenges that mothers in particular might have to face, right? So, other programs might say you have to write every day for 30 minutes. And I like that you are not so dogmatic in terms of you have to do it this way, but your main message is you just need to you have to have a routine that's consistent, right? And that's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
But there are some days where you can't because, your kids are sick or you're running late to school, right? And they're just, life happens. And so I appreciate that you did offer some strategies that were consistent with what I was doing, which if anything reinforced what I did. I'm like, okay, good, I'm doing what I need to do. But then you did offer kind of your unique perspective. And I always think, it's always helpful to get various perspectives, even if you're not going to use all of it. Usually there's something that will apply to you. But I have been, so I don't think I mentioned this to you, but I was just looking, I had to prepare my folder for promotion and tenure. And so, you have to update your CV and everything. So since I joined the program, which was 7 months ago?
6, 7. Yeah.
I have submitted 3 database articles, 3 chapters, and 3 grants.
That's insane.
Right? I was just like, wow. Oh my God. And it doesn't, like, that sounds exhausting when I say that, but I
Right.
don't feel exhausted.
Oh,
I'm still excited and invigorated by that. And
yeah.
I was teaching too. I mean, granted, I do have a reduced teaching load, which
Yep.
allows me to focus more on my research, but I still taught and advised and did my service.
But that's spectacular. Well done.
I
That's
know. Yeah.
really
So
great.
I feel like your program had a lot to do with, creating the structure to allow me to be really focused and be intentional about how I get those things done. Right?
Yeah, I that makes me really happy. I'm so proud of you. Like, I mean, rock star status. That's amazing. Cool. All right. So, what was your favorite part of this program? Like, if you had to name a thing, what was your favorite part?
I think the people. I think the
Mhm.
people were probably my favorite part. And I mean, because I'm not naturally, I want to say I'm completely introverted, but I think if I were to take like the Myers-Briggs personality, I would be right on the border of like, yes,
Right.
I can do it. But I
Yeah.
don't naturally like seek out a lot of social interaction. But
Right.
I felt like this was kind of a safe place to develop new relationships with people without it being too exhausting or intimidating. So I
Yeah.
think the people and the advice have been a really great feature of the program. But I think probably my favorite thing is just reinvigorating my love for what I do. Like I'm actually like, and I'm getting in contact again with like being successful, right? Like I
Ah,
have control because I can get these things out and I can
mhm.
control basically my pipeline and my future, right? And I
Yeah.
think, having that is something that is so invaluable, right? That you've
That's
invigorated like my spark
amazing.
and my love and like just really reinforce that I can do it.
Yeah, no, you absolutely can. I mean, and look at the results, right? Like you wrote it down in a list. I'm like,
Yeah.
look at all these things I did. Yes,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And you did it while feeling okay, feeling
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
instead of feeling like, stressed out and whatever. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, I was not
Okay.
working on the weekends, right? That was something that you also stress is that,
Yes.
you know what, you
No.
don't, if you spend your time well when you're working, then you don't have to
Yep.
respond to emails at 9 o'clock at night or work on Saturdays and Sundays unless you want to, right? Unless
Right.
that's part of
Right.
your schedule.
Exactly. Unless that's when you like to answer email.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So who would you recommend this program for?
Oh, I've already recommended your program to some of my colleagues who have joined. But I actually think I think this is appropriate for anybody who feels like they need to be either if they're starting out in academia and still trying to make sense of what
Mm,
academia is and what is their role in academia, but also people who feel like they just kind of lost some of their motivation or lost some of their spirit or light, right? As they've
yes.
been in academia for so long and they kind of beat it out of them. But I think I think it could be valuable for people at all stages. I think especially if you're starting out, I think it'll help build foundational skills that will allow you to start off successfully, right?
Mhm.
But I also think it's appropriate for people who have been burned by the system,
Yeah.
right? And that you're coming in to get some repair work
Yes.
done, right? So I think it could be a preventative strategy for folks who can come in, right?
Yep.
And just learn strategies to help them start off strong, but also to repair folks who've been a bit wounded, who are doubting whether or not this is for them,
Yeah.
right? Or academia is for them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your wonderful testimonial and for talking to me about the program.
Yeah.
Um, I really have appreciated you've given so much to the program. That's one of the things that like I love about the women who are in this program is that they create this community. I mean, like we're doing something, right? So we're doing something, right, to
Right.
attract people and kind of select people into the program and all, but the women in the program are creating, wonderful things and supporting each other in such wonderful ways that I really think that cultural change in academia, like the way to make it happen is by developing those kind of relationships. So yes. All right. Thank you.
Yay. And I'm going to see you in the summer, right? During
I
the
know. I'm
Amplify
so
retreat.
excited. Yes, I'm so excited. I'm going to turn off the recording just
Okay.
so that we, do you want to stop recording?